You're listening to Under the Hood. Behind the mask, under the hood. Hey everybody, my name is Akinola Verissimo. I'm your host for this week's episode of Under the Hood. And today we're talking with Anna Baumann. Baumann, did I get that right? Anna.
Perfect.
All
Perfect. I
right.
love it. Thank you so much. That's the best I've ever heard it.
We definitely didn't practice with that one before we started.
Mm-mm.
We went through heaven and hell and earth to get this podcast recorded for this week. We went back and forth trying to make sure our audio was good. People were sounding an octave below. People weren't their true selves, but we figured it out for you guys, so you all can enjoy this week's episode. I'm excited to sit down and talk with you.
So am I. Great
Yeah,
to be here.
last week I spoke with Finn, and now I'm speaking with someone more behind the scenes, pulling the strings, so to speak. So, we've only spoken briefly, but not in an interview like format. So I'm just going to get right to it. If someone hears the term general counsel in a nutshell, like how can you best describe that?
Sure. So, one general counsel is only, I'd say, 30% of what I'm doing here at Rogue, but it means that I need to oversee anything that is relevant in a legal kind of way for the company. And I know that sounds pretty dry when you hear it at first. So, what does it mean? One thing that's really important to companies is risk assessment. That means I oversee all the contracts we're doing, but I also assess what's currently going on. If, every contractor, every project we're doing is on time, or if there is any risk associated with that, and if we should do something. That is basically what a general counsel does. On top of it, of course, also the more interesting stuff is, for example, negotiating with publishers, the participation agreements to leagues, and player contracts. A very exciting one too. So that is part of my general counsel job. And then, as you know, I'm also managing director here of Rogue in Europe, which means that I provide the direction, the strategy, for what we're doing here with the LEC team, but also the day-to-day ops. I oversee basically everything here in the Berlin office.
So everyone looks to you as kind of like the beacon of light. Like this is the way that things are supposed to go. So you got a lot of responsibility on
Yeah,
your plate. Does it ever get too much sometimes?
that's absolutely true. Actually, no, it was a very conscious decision for me a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, to make the transition from having a private legal practice in esports to take on another job, and that of a managing director, just because I wanted to find a new challenge. Also being in charge of a project myself. I think, previously as a lawyer, I experienced it quite a bit. That, of course, I would advise clients on projects and, structure with them these beautiful, babies. And then you give it to your client once the
Hmm.
deal is signed, and you just hope for the best, but you have to let it go. It's not your project anymore. So now with this job, I finally get to be in the driver's seat. I can give inspiration, direction, the way I believe it should be in esports, what I think is really cool. And it's a lot of fun. And we also have a fantastic team here in Berlin. As you know, they just moved heaven and hell so we could do this podcast. They're
Right?
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, I will be honest with you. Being the boss is a new experience for me, or it has been a new experience for me, because there are lots of things that have changed. One of the challenges for me in the beginning was, as a lawyer, you tell people to do something and they will simply do it because you're the legal advisor, and they're really afraid of the consequences if they don't
Absolutely.
rely on your advice. But as I found out the hard way with employees, this is not how it works. Okay, you need to really find, inspiration, as you say, the beacon of light. You need to be the leader and always find, good reasons why you're doing it. Besides, dry, let's say, legal reasons. So that
Mhm.
was definitely new for me. That it's just broader, it's deeper when it comes to interacting with people, and I actually love that. But I wasn't prepared for it for sure.
I just want to say for anybody watching or listening to the show that this episode does not constitute any legal advice. I just had to
Yes.
throw that out there. Not that we're going to be delving into that, but just in case anybody's listening. Um, you talk about transitioning from working as not a manager to working as a manager. Yes, that transition sounds tough and it's not cut out for anybody. What was the biggest takeaway? What was the biggest like shock that you found out that managing people isn't just simply telling them what to do? You know, there's a certain aura about a certain method that you have to apply to make sure that people are listening to what you're saying and at the same time people are respecting your opinion. What were the challenges with that transition?
I think the best takeaway I have from this entire journey is that it's all about being a good team, working together, helping each other out, putting in the work that's necessary, whether it's on the competitive side when our team competes, or when it comes to the business side of what we're doing. It's all about putting in the hard work and connecting to your people, and feeling what's going on the ground. And yeah, also just working with a team. I think participating in a competition really means that you just share the highs and the lows no matter what. When you remember when we started out in the LEC, we came last in the first
Mhm.
split, and that was very tough. That was very tough on everybody. That was very tough on the players. That was very tough on the staff. And what I've learned is that you have to stick it out. It's just no matter what happens, you're there to carry the entire enterprise forward. And it's not always easy or nice, but if you put in the work, you can come out on top. So here we are now fighting for our spot at Worlds.
Absolutely. And the team's doing great. You know, they're 4-1. They've put out an impressive show so far. And a lot of people are saying, you know, this is Rose's year to show that they are a team that is worlds capable. And the plays that I've seen, I've been editing comms, and the way that the players work together is just, it's still mind blowing to me as someone from the outside looking in. You know, I'm never going to be a professional LCS player, but seeing these boys work is really inspiring, and it's really great to see such cohesiveness, such togetherness in the org, from you, from Tien, all player, like everybody. It's one big happy family. Talk to me.
Yes.
Talk to me. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the, before. So so everybody knows, I was listening in the background, and it's a
Mm.
madhouse over there. People talking about games, what they want to eat for breakfast. It's back and forth. It's a madhouse. How do you make sure that you navigate everything properly? Does it ever seem like, oh, there are too many people here at one time, like I just need my space? Like, tell me what office like is over there at the Rogue office.
Oh, definitely. Again, coming from a lawyer's office, this is very different. If you're here, the doors open, everybody wants to talk to you all the time, basically. So this is all about also finding boundaries from time to time. But then again, it is important to know what's going on, and what you're probably referring to. You've heard a little bit, of the mad things that are going on here. To a certain extent, I'm also a control freak. I just found out today that we have a beautiful snack that has whipped cream on it. So while everybody is enjoying the whipped cream, obviously this doesn't go really well with our nutrition plan. we do have a cheat day, I understand. But see, this is why it's so important to be around, because if nobody says anything, the guys will have their whipped cream every day, I guess. So I need to look into that after the podcast for sure. But you also made a really great point about the cohesiveness and the togetherness. And what I find so great and fulfilling, and also a great learning experience for myself, is that this is not random. The togetherness and cohesiveness, this is just, there are measures to a team building process. You can just take on the steps, and then, of course, sometimes people don't fit. Unfortunately, here the people fit really well. But for example, our team, that they're playing so well together, this is the result of our performance coach. I'm working with them every day, applying scientific methods to what he's doing, and then our coaches being really engaged. Everybody here shares this competitive spirit that they want to be better and better and better. And fortunately, we found great people who know how to improve constantly every day.
That's wonderful. That's so uplifting to hear.
Yeah.
And also, it's what's also really cool to see is women in esports kicking ass. I'll never get tired of that. It's an underrepresented aspect of esports that I love to see grow and grow. I'd like to talk and tap into your mind about, your dealings in esports as a woman. Did you encounter any difficulties with the opposite sex in terms of feeling legitimate in the industry, as a lot of my lady compatriots do?
Well, I think, if anything, I probably had it a lot easier than other women trying to break into the scene, just because as a lawyer, people automatically will will be a lot more respectful than they would be maybe when it comes to other professional choices. So from the very beginning, I also from the very beginning met great people. Nowadays, I'd say I've been just incredibly lucky. Back in 2015, I started going to tournaments, mostly CSGO tournaments. I
Mhm.
connected with the talent over there, Anders, Semler, all these guys. And we're still, greatly connected. Back then, we did some business together. It was all great. We did fantastic parties, but it was a wild and great time, and I felt very warmly welcomed by everybody. So I had a great experience. But, on the other hand, just recently, I've just seen on Twitter today, yesterday, all these heartbreaking stories from women where they share that they were victims of abuse, where I'm like, okay, this is this is just heartbreaking. And I've never been in situations where, I saw this happening, or, I
Mhm.
wasn't in a situation where, somebody behaved like that towards me. But it seems to be a really deep rooted problem. And that is also a call for action for everybody, I believe, in our industry, to take a closer look what's actually going on.
Yeah, I was heartbroken to hear these stories. It started for me on just Friday of last week, and it's been a avalanche of story
Mm,
after story after story. And I can't even begin to put myself in the shoes of some of these women who have suffered at all of these incidents that have happened to them. It's
yeah,
really, really sad. So much so that I had to get on stream and just kind of complain and say, men, we have to do better in terms of treating women how they would prefer to be treated, knowing when to not be a creep, knowing to not
yeah,
use your position of influence for evil. It is very easy to not be a bad dude. And the more that these people are outed, the better it is for our industry overall. So, to the ladies that have stepped forward and have relived their traumas, their troubles, all the more power to you. Like I said, I cannot even imagine
But to
what that.
everyone, really, I
Mhm.
think it is, and that's something that's so important to me. For example, to provide a safe workplace for people, and also advise younger individuals in the industry how they can protect themselves. I will just give you a couple of examples. Okay, I
Right.
know when I started out here, I was the only woman here on the European side. And, of course, I was also confronted with a couple of just stupid, by the way, jokes sometimes, which were, maybe sometimes a bit sexist and whatnot. And of course, I will always stand up and say, like, hey, can you just leave it? Because it's not funny. It's really not.
Yeah.
Maybe you think it's funny, but it's just I'm a strong person and it still sucks for me. So just shut up, okay? Like it's not okay. Um, and and following that, I put an emphasis, to have more women employed with us here in Europe because I also believe that it just helps changing the culture. I think when men, are just amongst themselves, they
Hmm.
sometimes behave really differently, and it also switches something in the culture, and that is something I really didn't want here for the full team, but also for our players because they're still so young and we provide an environment for them where they, just get to know the world and how to behave. So it's really, really important to me that we have a balance here, but at the same time also have a great environment for women to work in. And that extends, by the way, not only to, gender, it extends to many other things that make you an individual. I will not have it here that people are not empathetic and respectful towards each other. But I mean, generally, only great people work with us. But still, even a stupid joke, I'm not a fan. So I'll say
That's that.
something.
That makes me feel so good to be part of an organization that is about those values because you're right, the players are really young still, they're 19, 20, 21 years old. They're still very impressionable, and if
Yeah,
you provide an environment that shows the right way to treat one another, especially ladies, they're gonna go out to other experiences in their lives knowing that that's the way that they should be. They should always be excellent to one another, and I think that that is a mantra in esports that should be echoed throughout all different facets. It really sucks that some people are still like this. They participate in locker room talk. They don't really respect women, and they say these awful things that they think is okay. No one's going to call them out on them. And I'm a huge proponent of, if you're a good friend to somebody, you will. In the U.S., we have this term: we check our friends.
mm,
We don't have a problem calling them out right there in front of everybody else. They feel a little bit of shame, and once I feel like once somebody feels that shame, that dread, that oh man, I really screwed up, and now everybody knows I screwed up, they are way less likely to ever do that again. And I'm a
absolutely.
huge supporter of that. That needs to happen way more often in esports.
Yeah,
I cannot stand.
I agree with you. I mean, one thing I'll be open about is, when you ask me, like, did you encounter difficulties? So, I think one difficulty generally for women is to break into industries where you will have bro circles that
Yeah,
run part of the industry. Now, in esports, my impression is that for many parts, that's not the case, surprisingly. Okay. Not the gaming industry. I know that's really a different pair of shoes. But esports generally I've experienced as very open. It's new, it's digital.
hmm,
This is where you can bring innovation and people will welcome you. But when it comes, for example, to areas where you interact with, let's say, traditional sports people, football and Germany is absolutely male dominated. You will not see women in leading management positions there. And what I've experienced is that if you try to break into that scene, for example, looking for corporations from an esports perspective, as a woman, this will be so much harder than it is for a guy, just because you don't fit in the culture. It's just, and I don't say this is not necessarily something that, oh, those guys, they're hostile, or it's just that they are not used to interact with women in a certain context, and this is why you probably will not even get the chance to make your point, and that's just it.
Yeah, that's it's unfortunate, but I think that progress is being made. I think that it's a little easier every year, and as long as we have people like you, I think we have a bright future ahead of us.
Oh,
Um,
and not only that, we're just doing so great things in esports that, for example, traditional sports or all these other industries, that are male dominated, they're already looking in and aspiring to what we have in certain parts. So I'm not worried about that. As long as we keep esports as open to everybody as it is, I think we're good.
I want to talk briefly about your foray into esports. Now, this might have been covered in the first podcast, but I want to get a little bit more in depth. Now, I know that you are no stranger to the current games, League of Legends, CS:GO, but I kind of want to. What was your first competitive title? Like, what drew you into esports?
My first competitive title. So, one thing you have to know about me is that I'm a bit older than, let's say, average fan of
Uh huh.
Rogue. So that means maybe it's better to start with, how did I even encounter gaming? Because I'm this generation um, that grew up in a way that when I was born and a young girl, there was no internet. So the
Right.
experiencing the rise of the internet was a completely new experience of awe and wonder. So when I studied law, I started playing World of Warcraft, and I experienced for the first time this crazy feeling you have when you all of a sudden are able to connect with people all over the world, playing together, enjoying games. And that was really cool. However, I was also, would you believe it or not, at that time, rather shy. I wouldn't think that I'm good enough, for example, to compete. So in World of Warcraft, I wouldn't play arena during the first years. I know it's incredible, but I simply didn't do it. So
Hmm.
really, the first game I played competitively was League of Legends many, many years ago when my younger brother introduced me to it.
That's
And that got me hooked. Yeah.
that's awesome. What like so when you started World of Warcraft, was did you start with the first like retail release of the game, or was it Burning Crusade? Like, where'd you start?
Oh, it was open beta. So
Oh,
I,
oh, wow. OG.
yeah, true.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was absolutely, it was absolute. Well, I didn't play games before that. I was very focused on my law studies, and I
Hmm.
very ambitious student. But I've read an article about World of Warcraft, and it just sounded so beautiful, and interesting. So I really wanted to try it out. So I installed it, and yeah, it was just crazy. So my first and only character I've ever played with lots of passion for many years was an undead warlock. So
Hey,
yeah.
that's awesome. Funny enough, my first MMO was World of Warcraft. I had all of my friends play in college, and I was tired of being left out. So I saved up some money and I jumped into Burning Crusade, and it still remains one of the best experiences I've ever had in gaming, because I didn't know that you could play with people online like that.
Yeah.
I'd always play on offline console like games, and it opened my world up. And then when I played League of Legends a few years later, I was, here we are 9, 10 years later. And, my love for the game is still up there. Like, I may not be as good as I used to be, but League of Legends is the reason that I'm able to do the things that I've been very fortunate to do in the world of gaming and esports. So I can
Yeah.
say that I hate Summoner's Rift all I want, but I owe my life right now to League of Legends. It's great.
I know. So I also hate the Rift at the moment. So I was in Gold One, fighting, getting up for another division to Plat. And for some reason, Riot, we need to talk. I had a 10-game losing streak with
Oh,
people who went AFK, flamed me in ways you couldn't even imagine. And I simply don't get it. The toxicity was just way over. So sometimes I'm not sure how you get matched with people. Of course, I got many honors for keeping cool. I don't flame back, but still, it was a great experience. And now I dropped to gold 3. So here we go.
oh, jeez. That's a huge problem. That's one of the reasons why I stopped as well. It just people were like, it's 3 minutes in the game, they die early, and then they're just like, I don't want to play anymore, or why didn't you gank my lane? And there's not enough consequence that happens. I really wish that League would take Dota 2's abandoned system and just put the crappy people with the other crappy people, so the good upstanding citizens like us could just enjoy a damn game of League. That's all we want.
See,
Jeez.
I can now put all my newly found skills as managing director to use when I play League of Legends, because what I found out is when people give up and they're annoyed, you need to motivate them. You need to find ways to show them that they keep playing and they don't AFK or rage quit, God forbid. So you
Hmm.
need to keep them entertained. And on top of it, you need to make them understand in some way or the other that in your elo, players are all terrible.
Yeah,
Clearly, if you're anything but grandmaster or challenger, you don't know anything about this game. So
yeah,
all you need to do is not tilt, because that's what's going to win you the game. Of course, apart from crappy drafts and so on. But so this is what I usually do. I try to chat with people and just say like, hey, let's try to win. We can still
yeah.
do this. I mean, it's not as fun, but you can still win games like that. I guess
Absolutely.
I didn't do that the last 10 games though. So
I
yeah.
feel like you tried your best and it was out of your power, and all you can hope for, I feel like it's a coin flip. If you
Hmm.
just it's all it's actually, now that you say that, it feels like, all right, if we just tilt less than the enemy team, because I'm the type of person that will antagonize the enemy in nice ways to make them tilt off the face of the planet so that they don't want to play, and then we use that to our advantage, even if we're doing really really awful. If we just get in their head mentally
Yeah.
and establish dominance, then they will just not have the spirit to play. And that's how I've climbed so far. Your mileage may vary, everyone who's watching, but that's what's worked for me so far.
I'm gonna try to apply this approach more. I know that actually our players here are really good at that, getting into other people's head and even teasing them. Of course, without being toxic,
Yeah,
just
respectful.
respectfully teasing people in all chat can win your games for sure.
Absolutely. So you've got the documentary that has been filming, for the past couple weeks. I have only seen the end product of what's being put out on the YouTube channel, but what's it like having cameras everywhere, kind of documenting the everyday life of what happens behind the scenes? Are you able to just do your job normally, or do you have to present yourself in a certain way? How's that been going for you?
That's a really good question. I think by now it feels very natural to do this. Obviously, you still need to cut out time out of your schedule. I think this is always a challenge for everybody here for different reasons, whether it's the players because they're screaming all the time, or it's management. But it is part of our job here in esports to let the fans participate, to be really close to us, what we're doing, because that's incredibly interesting, I believe, to people out there. But honestly, when I did my first interview for Riot, when we just entered the LEC, I was so incredibly nervous. And I even had a blackout when I couldn't remember how I wanted to reply to a certain question, and then my head exploded into a tomato. It was terrible. I'm very used to public speaking, talking
Right.
about incredibly difficult topics, but being in the spotlight all of a sudden, that was just too much. And I'm so grateful to our general manager Thomas, because he insisted going with me to this first interview, and he said, "You'll see, I'll be helpful." And he was so good in just talking a couple of sentences, calming me down, getting me focused. It was like, wow, you're really good at that. I should hire you as GM for the players. Oh wait, we've already did that. But he was really, really good at that. I was incredibly impressed. How good he really is with people. That's great.
Who would you say is the most interesting player of the team to work with or be around, and why?
Oh, this is a tough question. I don't have favorites, but so let's see. Um, I probably will say that each one of them is incredibly interesting in their own regard. And even I, as managing director, get to know them from the very beginning, when we start talking about a potential contract with them. And then I'm basically part of their lives moving
Hmm.
forward, growing up. So here it goes. I think Emil Larsen is very interesting to me, because he is this very, very smart kid, good at school. His school education was so important to him that we found the solution for him to graduate before he goes fully pro. And even now, working with him, he is so bright, always quick on his feet, even when it comes to matters out of the game. So it's always great conversing with him. I think that is something that doesn't come across, let's say, when we talk about League of Legends, because he's just this, incredibly talented mid laner, very methodical. But that is also a side of him I find very interesting, and I can also relate to, because I loved going to school, being good at intellectual topics. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. But also all the other guys,
Hmm.
they're such interesting um, people. Casper, for example, we signed him when he was only 17, and
Ooh.
he is this young, incredibly self-confident guy, who has a fantastic career ahead of him. And then when we're here, when I'm around him, and see how he behaves, he is he's just so superior in many regards. And I think this is what makes him so relaxed. So, for example, when the team does their workouts, he will always slack off. Okay. It will always seem like he's incredibly lazy. But here's the thing, the reason why that is because he doesn't feel challenged. So recently they told me they did a running challenge, and he just won it easily. So everybody was really surprised all of a sudden, that he was so sporty. But I'm not surprised at all. This guy will only compete the moment he feels challenged, and otherwise, he will just rest and feel superior, I think, and rightfully so, honestly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is.
So you guys clearly have a fun time over there. You work hard, you play hard. What are some of the ways that the team likes to kind of relax and AFK from, day-to-day responsibilities? Do you guys play games? Do you go out to eat? Like, how do you guys relax?
Oh, I think food is a very central topic. You might have seen it. Not only have we great cooks who provide fantastic nutrition, besides the whipped cream, obviously, but
We won't talk about the whipped cream.
no, no. I'll bring it up 10 more times, until I get over it. Anyway, but also our guys can actually cook pretty well. So Stephen can cook. a fantastic chef. So when he first arrived here and our cooks weren't here yet, he did this amazing, I believe it was a Vietnamese dish with beef and vegetables, and it was so smooth and soft and aromatic, and everybody was incredibly impressed. And most recently, he did summer rolls and he fried them. It's quite advanced.
Oh,
Um,
get me hungry over here. This isn't fair. I haven't even had breakfast yet. How you gonna do
so,
this to me?
so Stephen is, very impressive in that regard. But it's even greater when we see the team interacting on a greater scale. What they've recently did was a cooking challenge, and
Ooh,
I love this so much. So I wasn't there when they did it, but I always, come later and then I see some random scoreboard and try to figure out what was happening.
what
So
happened here while I was gone?
so the last time what they did was they built teams, and then they cooked lasagna, and so each team member had a task to do, either chop the onions or cook the sauce, and they would measure the time, who was faster, and you would, so as you can already see, everything is incredibly competitive around here. This is what gets guys going here. And then, they would cook this lasagna. So you would get points for being fast. But in the end, there was also a blind test of the two lasagnas, and which one was better. So what was interesting about that, the one that took more time was actually the better one. But yeah,
Mm.
so this is, what they do to relax, but also what they do to build a great team spirit. And then of course they do everything other young guys would do as well. They go out to eat, they go out to relax. Of course, currently it's a bit more limited due to Corona, but that's what they do. And mainly, it might come as a big surprise to you, but mainly they're playing League of Legends even in their free time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you have to one, like and tolerate that game if you're playing it professionally, and even when you're not being serious about it, you're probably still going to want to play League of Legends. So I definitely don't fault them. Definitely don't fault them there. I mean,
Yeah,
if I see a
absolutely.
computer and it has League on it, I'll boot up a game and play. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another thing they
Um,
do, just because I found that one fascinating, and I think that's also a bit unique about our guys. So most of our guys enjoy physical activity. So even before we installed our regimen with physical workouts throughout the week, we would, for example, have Emil going for a run every second day. So when I met his father, I even, had to tell his father, had to confirm to his father that he's still running because he was very sporty beforehand. So our guys just enjoy moving and doing something different. I think that's incredibly healthy, but also makes our work a bit easier to provide a balanced environment to them.
Interesting. I feel like the next group activity should be some sort of lifting challenge or something like that. Like who can squat the most, or who can
Yeah,
who
see,
can who can lift the
Akinola,
most weight.
nothing that involves hands is a really good thing. So
Oh,
now you're
right.
talking to the lawyer, and I will always, look at
I
the
gotta shut this
things.
down.
Exactly. Our coaches are suggesting or anything, and they will just see me raising one eyebrow, and I'm like, nope, we're not
Oh,
doing this.
Anna says, no, it's shut down. Move along, everybody. What she says
Exactly.
goes.
No, no mountain climbing or anything. Well, one suggestion I made, let's see how they find it, but I said maybe we could do you say this in English, this stand up paddling? You know what I mean? You stand on kind of a surfboard, and you have the,
Paddleboard.
yeah, a paddleboard,
Yeah.
and you paddle. So but maybe it's also too boring. Again, they're young and they want action, so this might be too boring. I don't know.
I feel like that would be a great activity. I am a fan of kayaking.
Yeah.
So, and it's not really something that requires crazy hand usage. You're just literally holding onto an oar and paddling. So that could be really fun for them. I would love to see a vlog or documentary footage of that. That would be very fun.
Yeah, also, most waters here in Berlin are open to that. So we could do that not only at the lake here next to our apartment, but also through the canals here in Berlin, which I think is quite beautiful and interesting at the same time. So, yeah, we'll see how they're going to react. Fingers crossed. Maybe they even listen to this. Guys, let's go stand up paddling.
Now, do you participate in these activities as well, or are you just kind of warding off at the side, making sure that everything is going according to code? Like, will you find yourself kayaking or paddleboarding or playing games with them as well, or are you just kind of doing your own thing?
It depends very much on what we're doing. I think there are activities that are completely suitable for the entire office, and I actually encourage everybody to participate in that. So, um, last year, for example, we went to a laserdrome and played around there, which was, by the way, completely exhausting. It was so I participated, running around with a laser gun as well, and it was great fun. So I think when it comes to bigger group activities, we usually want everybody to participate. Also, because I believe we all feel that we're part of a team here and we're all fighting for the best results. And
Hmm.
it's also really good for us to know each other. After all, we all share an office. I know that in many organizations, players really don't know anything about what the people on the business side are doing. But I found that it creates also more trust between people when you understand what's actually going on in the company and how you fit into this puzzle and what you're contributing. But I will say that there are, of course, smaller activities that are planned by our performance coaches. I've recently seen that they did board games, and so I didn't participate in that. I wasn't even asked, unfortunately, because I love, I love all the board games, and I would have
Right.
been very competitive, but not my place. Sometimes they shut me out. What can I
Oh,
do?
I'm gonna petition for them to. Hey, look, guys, I just want to kick your ass at this game. Okay, don't. It's okay if you're scared, but I play Mean Settlers of Catan or whatever board game that you guys might be playing
Exactly,
at the
exactly.
time.
But it was also so fun for me then to see the results. Again, I came in and saw the scoreboard and saw who's really good at that. I am not surprised at all, for example, that Oscar is really good, Vander is really good at chess, or um, or that what was it? That I can't remember, but the chess one was really like, yeah, if you'd ask me who would win in chess, of course it's Oscar. Nobody else would
Uh,
do that. Yeah.
how does your family feel about the path that you've taken from being really studious and being in law to managing an esports team in Europe? How do they feel? Are they supportive? Are they happy for you?
Oh, they're incredibly supportive. It's actually funny that you're saying that. So look, one of the reasons why I picked law back then is, one, because I didn't know better, and two, because my parents told me, see, if you study law, you can do anything. By the way, that's a lie, but um, I definitely didn't know back then that I could do esports, and now it's the best career choice ever. So when I started well, I when I started my legal practice, before that, I was working at university. I was working on an academic career, and it was certainly a turn in my career. The reason why I did that was just because I felt this is an opportunity that only comes once in your life, where you get the chance um, to just follow your passion and apply your intellectual capacity at the same time. I was a risk back then, but my parents were always supportive. Especially my mom, she thought it was great. It was a good fit. She was like, "You're brave, you're bold. This is the right choice for you. So good luck, and you're also good with people." And it turned out to be wildly successful. But I will tell you that in uni, my colleagues back then, they were really critical of my choice and they thought it was silly. Of course, nowadays they don't think that anymore. Maybe they're even jealous. I don't know. But it was definitely a surprise, I think, to my environment when I decided to go full esports.
And it's worked out for you. I would, I definitely see why people would be skeptical of the esports industry 10 or so years ago. There were a lot of unknowns, but I mean, that's how it is with any industry. And now that it's found its footing, there are proven entities in Rogue and a whole bunch of other orgs that this thing is something that is a labor of love. People are really shining because of people like you, and it's just really great to see. I'm happy in the direction esports is going, and I can't wait to see what happens through the rest of my life, because I really got only involved when League of Legends kind of set the way for like what a good esport looks like. I mean, yes, for everyone listening, I know that League of Legends is not the first esport, but I stand by the belief that it's the first esport that kind of brought legitimacy to the whole scene, that to show people that, hey, this is something that can truly exist for anybody in finance, in law, talent management, any avenue that you can think of, where it benefits currently. League of Legends is like the poster child of it. And that's why we see all these other leagues trying to emulate the same thing. Before we go, what's one useful piece of advice you could give to people who might be entering esports for the first time or having trouble breaking in? I mean, you've had years and years and years of experience to know what works, what doesn't. Yeah, there might be a little luck involved. Yes, it might be about who you know, but what's one good piece of advice you could give as we wrap things up for today?
Well, I think if you want to enter esports, if you want to work in esports, um, I think it's good to apply at an internal and external perspective. So, internally, I think it's always helpful to ask yourself, what are you passionate about? What is it really uniquely about esports that gets you so excited about this topic? And then also ask yourself, what can you contribute to make esports better? That can be in any area. In my case, it was the legal expertise, but that can be so many things. Maybe you're creative, maybe you have an accounting background. I don't know, whatever it is, think about what you can bring to this industry and how you can actually improve the existing state. Then externally, I believe it's really important to think about strategically how you can at break in but also advance your career. One key factor here in esports is networking. You just need to know people who are in positions who can actually help you. Maybe they're willing to mentor you, but they will definitely be able to uplift you. So in my case, you said it, I was a bit lucky to make great connections in the very beginning. I met Thorin very early on in my career, and he has supported me all the way through. And having popular figures supporting you in any way can advance your career and can really help you. So does that mean that you just need to be a crowd pleaser? No, just find people who share the same passions, who you can provide interesting insight to, and who are also willing to help you. So, for example, in my case, from time to time, I have especially females reaching out to me and asking me for help. And I usually love to provide that, even, looking around for jobs for them, because that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. So don't be shy, reach out. You can just slide into someone's DMs, and great stories can follow.
Wonderful advice. As always, it's wonderful speaking with you. I feel like I learned a lot today, and I have to find my way over to Berlin one of these days so I can hang out with you proper and
Yes,
really
please.
get. Yeah, I'm gonna figure out a way. I think it needs to happen. And I need to meet everybody who's doing big things over there because you guys are inspiring me to do my own big things here. So we'll make it happen one of these days. Anna, thank you very much for stopping by. Everyone watching the show, listening to the show, thank you very much. You can listen to this on all podcast media on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Thank you for listening/watching Under the Hood. And remember to go rogue.